Did Vikings actually wear horned helmets? Well, it depends on what you're trying to say with them. Some people say that these horns represent a kind of Viking helmet that was typical for the era, but that is simply not true. There are no archaeological findings from the Viking Age that show that they wore helmets like this. The most famous depictions of horned Vikings come from two sources. The first one is the so-called golden horns, a pair of drinking horns found in an ancient Viking burial mound in Sweden in the early 19th century. They were probably made around the year 800 and are decorated with scenes from Norse mythology. The second source is the Oseberg Tapestry, an 8th century piece of art depicting various aspects of Viking culture, including this guy right here who appears to be wearing a horned helmet. However, just because these two artifacts exist doesn't mean that they represent actual Viking battle helmets. In fact, historians now believe that the golden horns were probably used in a ritualistic context and not in battle because, well, drinking horns. And the Oseberg Tapestry, while depicting a warrior, is more of a symbolic representation of Viking culture than a realistic depiction of what a Viking might have looked like in battle. So why do these horned figures appear in these depictions then? Well, probably because the Vikings associated the horned imagery with their god Odin, who they believed had a helmet made of exactly that, horns. And since Odin was the god of wisdom, poetry, and, importantly, war, it made sense to put him in a horned helmet. It also probably didn't hurt that these kinds of headdresses could also be used as a symbol of authority. Think about the Pope's mitre or the elaborate hats worn by many lawyers and judges. In the same way, a Viking chieftain or jarl might have worn something like this to signify his status. But would a Viking foot soldier wear such a thing into battle? Well, probably not. For one, helmets with horns would have been much heavier than standard helmets, which were usually made of leather and had a simple metal nose guard. Adding horns to your helmet would definitely throw off your center of balance and make it much harder to swing your weapon effectively. Not to mention the fact that your enemies could grab onto those horns and pull you off balance or yank your helmet off your head completely. And if that happened, you'd be left without any protection, making you an easy target for an axe or a sword. So while the image of the horned Viking looks cool and has become a popular symbol of the culture, there's no evidence that they were used in battle. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a world to save.